So when you talk or plan your hiring strategy, right, I think it's super important to visualize the challenges that your talent acquisition team will tackle, right? And again, it's connected very much to your company mission, vision, development, and roadmap. And also to visualize your ideal team member profile, right? So you want to have a picture, a very clear one, of the skills and competencies and seniority and everything that goes into this ideal profile. And I would suggest think very broad about competencies. And the next point, as you can see, is competencies versus experience, right? Because when we talk about competencies, something that is very obvious is think about competencies and skills that you need for a job. So this person needs to be a good sourcer, right, or recruiter, and it comes with a bunch of requirements and responsibilities. At the same time, especially when you work in a company like Remote, it's a very unique environment, right? And it's a very challenging one, if I'm very honest, right? So you need your team members to be able to work in such an environment, right? And you want your team members to thrive in this environment. So you actually want to focus on skill and competencies versus their experience as much as possible. And also make sure that you plan for some flexibility because again, startup is a startup. Functions can blur, it can change a bit. As I mentioned, we want to have a person who have the expertise, but also open to work on something else, like cross-team collaboration, stuff like that. So competencies and skills are very high on the plan, I would say. And also when we talk about value add and culture fit, I think it's kind of a big topic now in the market that you don't really want to be looking for culture fit because it means that you try to find a person who would fit a particular culture, right? And when we talk about this particular culture, it means it could be I don't know, US-centric or European-centric or whatever centric, right? And again, if we talk about the global team and globally distributed team, you have so many different backgrounds. So you don't want them to fit within a particular culture. You want them to be part of your values and you want them to share your values, right? And that's how it works. And when we talk about this like value versus culture, I think it's super, super important because as your company develops, your culture, if you have it, it can change too, right? But ideally, values do not change. So if you realize that kindness is your value, it can transform with time. But if you have all the people who are kind and who apply kindness to their work, it means that kind of nothing can go wrong, right? And even if something changes, if their role, function, whatever change, they are still value aligned, and that's the most important thing. The next thing is to visualize some very practical things like global distribution, time zones. And again, it's super important because your team will be talking to candidates outside, right? Outside of your company, I mean, and they are all over the world because you hire all over the world. So you need to cover all the time zones. And you also want to see the data for your diversity, like diversity composition within the team, right? And be able to see like, okay, I probably have a lot of folks who are I don't know, this particular gender, ethnicity, geography, whatever. So all the aspects of diversity. And it means that you want to focus on something else and bring more diversity because it's more, again, backgrounds and thoughts and visions. And again, I repeat that in every slide. I think you always need to lean into data as much as possible when you work with your team composition and also when you work with your hiring strategy, because that's the only way how you can plan better. Otherwise, it would be just your either previous experience and background that kind of kicks in, right? Or maybe something that you spot on the market and you think like, okay, that's a good idea, I should adopt that. But you should really, really lean into data as much as possible.